All right, so welcome everyone to our extraordinary council meeting. Welcome to those that are joining us online. This is for the adoption of our water services plan. I'd like to also welcome the Honourable Amy Adams, who's been acting as our Crown facilitator in this space. So thank you for joining us, Amy. And we'll just start first of all with apologies. Do we have any apologies? I don't think. Got a full lot of us here, so I'll move on to declarations of interest. No, so we will move on to the report, and I guess I'll just start a little bit there from the governance sense, and then I'll pass it on to yourself, Alex. Obviously, we've done a lot of work on this, and I want to start by thanking staff for the incredible work that has gone on in the background to try and get this here in time, and it's been a little bit shorter than we would have hoped as well, because we've been asked now to have it to DIA in time for them to approve by the end of the month rather than just have it received by then. But this is a really good first step, and I think, yeah, credit for the amount of work done. I want to thank the Honourable Amy Adams for the work that she has done in helping us along the way as well. Having that connection straight to Amy herself and through to the Minister has been helpful with us, asking for a whole lot of questions and just getting a bit of support. So I just want to thank you for that. And for now, I'll pass over to Alex.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. By way of brief intro, this report brings back the amended Water Services Delivery Plan for your approval, so it can be resubmitted within the government's timeframe. The original Water Services Delivery Plan for in-house delivery, whilst it met most of the assessment criteria, was rejected by the Secretary for Local Government, citing the need for further information on the condition of assets and then reconsideration of planned expenditure given this assessment, a requirement to undertake an asset maturity assessment, consideration around sufficiency of funding for growth, revenue and pricing pathways and overall financial sustainability. And the Secretary for Local Government and the Minister for Local Government in his letter also urged the Council to reconsider its delivery model, as there was concern that the in-house option would not produce a compliant water services delivery plan. So since the original plan was rejected, there's been a huge amount of work undertaken to address the issues raised, including that deeper asset condition assessment, financial analysis, and that further consideration of delivery options. This work is now complete, and the amended plan reflects both the technical work and Council's decision to rejoin Southern Waters as the future delivery model. Importantly, this plan is not just about compliance, it's about putting in place a more sustainable and resilient way of delivering water services to our community. This government and the last government has made it clear that investment in water by all councils needs to increase and higher standards need to be met, or councils will face financial penalties. And water infrastructure has been one of this council's biggest capital expenditure programs since 2020, and a huge driver of our costs and our rate increases. We're the 11th largest district in New Zealand by land area, but we're 44th in terms of population. And we have 15 domestic water schemes and 8 wastewater systems. And this means that our costs tend to be higher than most other councils for upgrading because of our dispersed population and the schemes. So this has been challenging, as we've needed to fund the upgrades required to bring these up to new standards set by the government's Water Services Authority, as well as replacing ageing infrastructure and plants. So this Water Services Delivery Plan gives us greater confidence that we can meet higher regulatory standards, better manage the cost of renewing and upgrading infrastructure, and provide a more efficient long-term model than Council would achieve on its own. For the community, that means safer, more reliable drinking water and wastewater services, and a stronger platform for future investment. This also represents the most affordable option for our community. As whilst water charges will rise for all consumers in New Zealand, including Waitaki, this plan sees significantly lower charges per year on average than the in-house model. But this is also significant for Council, as it means that the plan enables a more financially sustainable pathway for the Council, reduced delivery risk, and greater ability to manage the very significant pressures that water infrastructure has been placing on our rates and on our debt. So this report, therefore, is the next formal step in responding to the government's feedback, meeting their requirements, and moving Waitaki's water reform programme forward in a way that is intended to better serve both our residents and put the organisation on a stronger financial platform. I also want to thank officers, particularly Paul Hope and Paul Hayes, who have really driven this work, but also elected members who I know have put a lot of time into this and finding the right way forward for our organisation and for our community. And I'd also like to thank the Honourable Amy Adams, who I think has been very supportive of us, but also constructively challenging in making sure that we get the right results, and has used her time efficiently to support us in this process. So thank you. I don't know whether the officers want to add anything else to that introduction.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple of items in relation to the development of the plan. As noted in the report, there's sort of been two main work streams, one more technical in nature that was led by Paul Hayes and the asset management team. And then I think the more public one about sort of this addressing some of the other aspects. I suppose looking back on it, this really had tried to make this a very open and collaborative process. I think virtually all of the meetings were and workshops were conducted in public, including the discussions around the different service delivery models. And that was concluded a couple of months ago with the decision in relation to Southern Water. For the more technical aspects, it was Paul and the team worked very closely with the Department of Internal Affairs to make sure that the information we were going to receive from the consultants we engaged was actually going to meet the requirements of the department so that we could produce a compliant plan. So I think, it's, yes, it has been hard work, but it's we've been supported by a lot of parties, and certainly want to recognise, I think it's online somewhere, the efforts of Morris and Lowe right through this process to produce a couple of work streams and really help draft the document that you see before you. Just in terms of the document itself, it's an amended plan, not one that has started from scratch. And at the direction of the department, it includes a number of financial disclosures in relation to Southern Water, not just Waitaki. So it's a blend of the two, which I think, in spite of the best efforts of everybody, does get a bit confusing in places about which financials are actually being presented. So it does need to be read carefully, but the audience of this is quite limited. It is required to still be produced in the template that the department developed for really a process that was supposed to finish a while ago. So it does include, it's like a mix of 25, 26 information, which was based on the LTB, and then we've updated the 26, 27 information for the decisions in the annual plan. So it's it's a real blend of sort of a number of different information streams, but it is all consistent. It does produce a comprehensive picture, and it does include the Southern Water information, which is in there to allow Southern Water not to have to do an amended plan and submit that to the department. So this is sort of put it all in one place and deal with it all at once, rather than two separate plans, which I think would have imposed unnecessary work on Southern Water. So I think it was quite a reasonable position taken by the department to allow it to all be addressed in this single document rather than sort of two documents. So yes, with that, I think we'll move over to questions and comments.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge Stu Cross from Morris and Lowe, who is online, just recognise and welcome Stu. And I guess also just one other thing to touch on is just to thank councillors for the time they have spent on this. It's been above and beyond, but in particular to Councillor Schlack for all your time in this area. He certainly jumped onto council and hit things head feet first, and have really appreciated the time you have put into that role. So just want to acknowledge that. So now I'll open up to questions. Councillor Hopkins.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Paul, there's a series of appendices at the back of the Water Services Delivery Plan, starting on page 113, Council Resolution, Network Asset Condition, Grading Assessment Report, Assessment of Stormwater CCTV Data, Assessment of Wastewater CCTV Data, all of which are blank. When are we going to see those?
So you've, other than the resolution, which will follow on from this meeting, you'll have already seen all of that information. So that's the technical reports that Project Max produced and were distributed. So yeah, that's just existing information that will be attached just for completeness.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Deputy Ryan.
Thank you. I guess the big question that I'm getting from the community on this decision today is what this means now that the government has announced simplifying local government reform and amalgamation. And I guess there's a level of uncertainty in the community right now about what this means for our future options in that space. Whether this locks us into, only looking south when we're having conversations, and there's various different views in the community of where we should be heading in that space. So I guess my questions, and taking the opportunity, I guess, with Amy and Stu online too, just I'd really like to understand, I guess, whether there's been advice on how we can align these two, I guess, conversations and two directions, and yeah, I guess just seeking real assurances that approving this plan today doesn't affect what future options might be available to us through the Head Start process. It's the big question that I'm getting from everyone in the community right now. And so for my own understanding and for the community, I'd appreciate, I don't know who is best to answer that, but that is just, it keeps coming up. So I would appreciate that.
That probably goes in a few directions, but I'll start and then Alex, and then I'll go to Stu after that. So it's certainly an issue that I share, and I think when we had our plan turned down, and then in December when the first announcements were made on the simplifying local government proposal, that was certainly something I put to DIA, because in a lot of views it was a lot easier, well, not easier, to make a decision in the dark when you didn't know what was going to come down the barrel at councils. And all of a sudden in December, we knew a little bit more, not enough more, that it became a how do you make this decision when you've got another bigger decision that could be affected by it in play. Certainly the very clear steer I got from DIA at the time was they need to be treated separately. They must be treated separately, and in the timeframes, you must get your water services plan over the line, essentially. When it comes to what it looks like for us, I think like any CCO, and a number of us have CCOs in different joint entities, I think it does keep every option on the table for us. We just need to work through, and a lot of councils are going to be in the same space, work through what it could look like. So I think we could say, hey, we want to align with, say, Southern Water Councils, because that makes some portions of things simpler, but we need to also balance that with communities of interest, with the overall budget implications for everything else that's not water. So I think there's a whole lot of things at play, and we need to take it into account. But I don't think that we're in a space that we can push, pause, or go in any other direction at this stage on the water plan. It's probably where I've landed with it, but there is a decision to be made. It's not a straightforward one, because I think any other decision rather than the accepting of something today will put us squarely back into the hands of the minister to do as he will with Alex.
So to add to that, you're not deciding today whether to go north or south with your water. That decision you've already made, and this is about giving effect to that through the water services delivery plan and meeting the government's timetable. I don't think it locks you in terms of a decision around where you land in simplifying local government and the Head Start programme. It's clearly a consideration in there, but I think that's a separate assessment of which there are a number of different outcomes. And in relation to water, one of the outcomes might align with that. Another outcome might be that it doesn't align with that, and through implementing new unitary arrangements, some of the water arrangements need to be rethought. But there is also the possibility that there are arrangements that actually lead to the growing of Southern Waters as a CCO. There's too much up in the air to speculate about that, but I think the simplifying local government and where this council decides to go with that, this decision today doesn't lock you into a particular pathway. It just might mean wherever you land with that in the future, there might need to be some adjustments in the way that water is delivered. So I think we can't used today to speculate where we might land and what the implications are. And I think the same goes for many of the decisions that, you know, council has made recently and will need to make going forward. You know, that until we understand where our future lies, which may be some time away, you know, it may be a number of years away under the, you know, one of the pathways set out by the government. We need to get on with doing what we're required to do in terms of delivering for our community and also meeting government requirements.
Stu, did you want to add to that at all?
You see, I took my hand down because I think yourself and Alex have covered this pretty well, but just from a, I guess, consultant who's dealing with this across the country perspective, I would just resoundingly, you know, reinforce the comments that I've heard, is that there are groups across the country that we're working with, and certainly groups that we're not working with that we're aware of as well, that are all looking at water organisation, or Head Start proposals that may not align with the local water regional count, the local water delivery model boundaries and service delivery options as well. They're two different things, right? One's a water network, and how do we deliver that water network on a hands-on, day-to-day basis, really infrastructure delivery. And the other one is really about your communities of interest and where do things line up, and where does it make sense, and where are we properly aligned. Obviously, in time, we expect that might mean that water entities might change, because we might have councils that are shareholders of 2 water entities, or councils that are shareholders of 1 water entity and have some water inside. All of those things still have to be dealt with, and they're not going to be dealt with in 3 months before the 9th of August, when we've got to submit proposals. But they're all things that will be considered, and certainly I don't think anyone's using this as a reason to go one way. But of course, that does give you a natural option that you may well consider, which is the councils within your water entity's boundary are one of the, as a natural pairing, as something that you would consider, but it certainly wouldn't rule out any other options. And that's certainly not elsewhere in the country with the work we're doing. So.
Councillor Schlack.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to respond to Deputy Mayor Ryan's question as a colleague around the table, which I think might just help her also to know what other councillors think. I'll admit, when first this Head Start was launched, my first knee-jerk reaction was, well, sort of makes sense to we join the councils that are part of Southern Waters. That was the very first knee-jerk reaction I had. And then I started to go to meetings in Waitaki and read the papers and listen to people in my own ward, which happened to be the Waihima ward. And I think some of you have picked up that Waihima might play a different role in all this altogether. As suggestions have been made, as in, well, it should move to a different unitary organisation apart from Waitaki. Basically, what I want to say to Councillor or Deputy Mayor Ryan is that I don't think in any way now that our decision to join Southern Waters has any bearing on which way we're going to go by the 9th of August. If we go somewhere, I don't want to preempt it at all. I just take on board what I hear from my own community, my people within Waihima, and in the end, no doubt there will be discussions around this table. So the best advice I can give to my colleague is keep an open mind and listen, but don't let the decision on Southern Waters joining influence any future division on forming a unitary organisation somewhere else, because I am absolutely convinced now the two are not intertwined. Thank you.
Councillor Lewis and Councillor Holding.
Thanks, Mayor Tavendale. So just if I'm getting this correct, what I'm hearing is that there's no incumbency on the decision we make today. There's no incumbency on any other councils that we join forces with going forwards to actually be part of Southern Waters. However, if we don't sign off on this water services delivery plan, that would be a red flag going forward for anybody to effectively join with us. So that there's two completely distinct, separate things at play, but there is no incumbency for us to all have to be part of the same organisation going forward.
I think you've probably hit the nail on the head there, Councillor Lewis. There's two separate, but it's hard to separate them because in the perfect world, or in a world where it wasn't quite so insane when it comes to the amount of reform we've got thrown at us all at once, you would settle what your council boundaries look like, and then the entities that fall out of that handle some of your infrastructure challenges like water would fall out of that. But that's not the direction that we've been handed, and to make any other decision would certainly essentially just probably make us an unpalatable option in a lot of ways. So I think there's a lot of risk in that. And around the looking forward as well, I think we need to remember that, for instance, we have a number of CCOs that are operating within council, and if we join with any other council, that CCO is currently owned by Waitaki, and so whatever else we join, if we've got part shares in a CCO or some other kind of business or entity, that's going to need to be unpicked in some way and work out where that lies. And so, and those intricacies are in operation across the board, and they're going to be part of the detailed discussion moving forward on any future amalgamation discussions. Councillor Holden.
Yeah, probably still concerned with some of the risk around there. I see today on one of the partners' agenda, they're looking at the Head Start maybe moving towards the Southland Unitary. So just as we unpiece stranded overheads and that, like how does that actually, I don't know, just still over concerned with that risk as well.
It's not ideal is probably the best way you can put it. But in saying that, when you've got an entity that's going to be working outside of council, so while we have the CCO, your letters of expectation and that kind of role for this, it's ultimately going to have its own board and its own governing body that's going to make the decisions for the best and the best kind of for the entity rather than anything else. So essentially it'll be looking at how they do action the water services delivery plans across the number of councils that are involved. So there is an issue, but it's also a standalone entity that we will have in one way or another an ability to manage through that CCO relationship. So yeah, it's untidy. Right, Councillor McCone.
Look, I hear what everybody says and take on board what Councillor Ryan's saying, and I'm inclined to agree. It's one of those things where it's supposed to be called simplifying local government. Today's easy. We've got to do this legally anyway. We don't have a choice. We've just got to get this across the board. And we've had government direction, be it the DIA or whatever it is, that our first option wasn't considered, and we're directed to the second option. So again, we don't have that choice. What does concern me is further down the track is where that lies. Again, I'll go simplifying local government. I can just see a whole lot of confusion and everything else that must be sorted out before the 8th of August. Otherwise, we're going to end up costing millions more just to try and sort out something that's a piece of legislation that hasn't been thought out properly. And I wish the government had actually given us full direction right now rather than have to second guess what's going on.
I guess I'd caution against the full level of detail being available 9th of August. There will be not enough detail. And we're going to be having to still unpack a lot, and we've got some decisions to make before then. Essentially, just because we're in a public space, and I think it's important to outline what we are doing. We are setting up, pulling up data around what our options could be looking south, or they could be looking north, and there probably could be a bit of a mix of what it could be in the middle there as well, so that we can have a bit of a data-driven discussion. And early in July, we'll have that presented to Targa Mural Forum, to Canterbury, and then we will have a decision point, and when we've got a discussion to have around the timeframes of that, because we are having to throw a whole lot of potential meetings in spaces that they aren't already to try and address that. And then we need to decide basically through those decisions, A, do we want to go into the Head Start proposal, and B, do we want to move forward? But I guess we've also today got to separate. These conversations are we touch, because I think it's really hard to separate, but they are currently different timeframes and different discussions, and we will have an opportunity to delve further into the other. Alex and then Councillor Cowles.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I think there's a danger we're going to overcomplicate what's the decision before us now, and it's we need to approve a water services delivery plan to meet with the government's requirements. We can't speculate about where things will land and how that will be sorted out. They won't be sorted out by the 9th of August if we decide to go through to the Head Start process, and that's a decision the council will need to make. They might not be sorted out for a long time after that, and indeed, we already see with other utilities. So if you think about lines companies, they don't stick to district boundaries. So Dunedin City Council owned lines company operates in the southern part of our district, and it doesn't impact us that way. You could have similar arrangements with waters in the future if boundaries change between councils. I think we're potentially overcomplicating things and trying to speculate about where things might land when there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of decisions to be made in the future, including the reform process as it is at the moment for reorganisation will need to survive the election process and coalition agreements and be legislated for next year, which the government is proposing to legislate for this. I think it's March, April next year. So there is a long way to go on that, and we need to focus on the decisions we have before us today.
Absolutely agree with you, but I think this is really helpful too, because it is what, and as the Premier Ryan said, it is what our community is sort of asking of us. So they need to know that we are understanding that question, and while we can't answer that question, there needs to be a bit of a understanding that we have worked through that and we've asked these questions ourselves, and it's a tangled situation we find ourselves in, and these are the things that at the top of everyone's minds right now. So I think it's helpful to spend a little bit of time, but I do still understand that we need to get to a space where we very much separate what we're discussing today and we land on a decision on that. But I'll take Councillor Cowles and Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you, through the chair. I guess there's probably a few, Alex, because you've got to sign off this as being true and correct, and it's just a risk thing here for me. I notice on page 68 it says no independent cost estimation of capital projects have been completed. Does that line in itself leave us at any risk around the costs and the figures that we have here? I guess that's just it's only my, if no independent cost estimation of the capital projects have been completed, are we confident in the figures that we do have in here, that we won't have too much drift, I suppose?
As confident as we can be. We know the environment we're working in is volatile and that costs can increase, but I think it's the same approach that we take to costing all of our capital investment program, is that we're using best estimates based on the market knowledge we have and what it costs to deliver these things. I don't know whether Mr. Hayes wants to comment on that further, but I'd say there's always a risk that those costs will go up. I think probably the biggest risk is that all costs will go up in New Zealand because there is a massive program of spend across councils in water infrastructure, and there is a deficit in capacity to deliver at the moment. And I think that's something we're talking to Southern Waters and other councils about in terms of how we work to ensure the capacity is there and that the prices don't increase. But Mr. Hayes, do you want to comment on that further?
No, nothing additional to add.
Councillor Hopkins.
Oh, thank you. Look, the only thing I would say is, first of all, I probably disagree with John. I like the fact that once Parliament is actually walking the localism talk, and we are given an option of coming up with our own proposals, which they've said they'll consider more positively than those that are going to be imposed, before the latter might be in the government's mind. And the only other thing I would say is, in terms of talking to the community, perhaps we should make clear to them that the criteria for the two decisions are so radically different, and that the government has placed a great deal of emphasis on catchments as far as amalgamations are concerned. And that means that there's a much greater focus on how and who manages the Waitaki River, in our case, than is at play when we're looking at the affordability and sustainability issues related to Three Waters. So there is that distinction to draw that might help the community decouple the two.
Yeah, I think we'll tease that out a bit through the community meetings we've got that are going to be advertised nowish. I'm looking in a direction here. Councillor Slack.
Yeah, I'm taking the discussion a bit back to what this was about, which was the water service delivery plan, because I think we're going sideways a little bit. Just like you go on record, I want to thank all officers and staff for the effort that they've put in. I put a lot of time into this document when it came to us as a draft, made a lot of comments on, and I note that pretty much everything has been applied in this version. So thanks for that. Makes me feel good. Once everybody's finished all the questions, because we seem to be talking about a difference now. Councillor Limwood has another question, but once we're all done, I'm happy to move that this council accepts this water service delivery plan as is recommended in the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Slack. I'll take that as a notice of motion. I'll take Councillor Limwood's question first, and then I'll look for a seconder.
Thank you. This might be an irrelevant question, but what happens if Southern Waters doesn't perform as we're expecting it to? Is it just a case that we'd have to suck it up and deal with it? Or would there be like an exit mechanism once we've gone through amalgamation?
Mr. Hope.
Yeah, there certainly is an exit mechanism. That was something that was always contemplated, but I think it would be difficult but achievable. That was one of the criteria that Southern Waters was set up under, and I think there was recognition all the way through the development process that this is unlikely to be the final answer right across the country in terms of the groupings and arrangements. So I think it will be a little bit iterative for a while, that we'll work through the Head Start program and then the reorganisation, and then I think probably it will go back to, are the better water arrangements, given the experience of them operating, the position that Commerce Commission takes in terms of the regulation of them, what future government goes. So it's like, yes, but then there's an awful lot of buts after that.
Yeah. Councillor Lewis, and then I will take a seconder.
Thank you. Through the chair, question for Mr. Hayes. With regards to the assessments that were undertaken, were they in line with what the expectations were?
Yeah, generally they were in line. We got some good information back, which was useful for the delivery plan, but actually more useful for our forward planning. So it confirmed some of the assumptions we made. A big one was around the age of the cast iron pipes that we've got in town here, which, based on the lives we had assigned, were at the end of their life. That wasn't matching our experience, so we expected there was a lot more. And this condition assessment has confirmed that. Confirmed the way we were heading on the renewal of the wastewater pipes. Confirmed that they were indeed at the end of life, which justifies the program we've got to replace those. And yeah, gave us some guidance on the early generation PE PVC pipes, and probably a little bit more insight into the condition of our AC pipes. So, but yeah, generally in line with our expectations, and the budgets allocated to renewals haven't shifted much from what we had initially.
Right, do I have a seconder for Franz's motion? Seconded by Councillor Cowles. Now, before I do open up for debate, I just wonder whether, Amy, you wanted to add anything at this stage.
Thank you, Mayor Tavendale. No, look, I think the only comment I would make is just to reiterate the thanks and congratulate you on the work that's gone into this. This is a massive achievement to put together all of the reports and answers that DIA wanted and to turn this plan around. So look, from my perspective, huge thank you and congratulations to all of your team for what you've done. And just to acknowledge that I think you've come up with a water services plan that certainly meets the requirement of DIA, and I've been really grateful for the constructive way that you've all approached what I know is a difficult and challenging issue, not made any less so by the ongoing suite of announcements around local government reform that you've had to deal with along the way. But the fact that you've all approached it in an open-minded, pragmatic way and just been focused on the need to come up with the best solution for your community, I think is really a mark of the good job you're all doing around the table. So no, from me, I think you're in a good position. None of this is easy. None of the outcomes are without difficulty. But I think where you've landed is sensible and pragmatic. And I, again, just thank you for that. And I'm expecting a good result from DIA, fingers crossed, of course, but feeling positive about it.
Fantastic, thank you. Right, so we've got a motion on the table. Is there any comments anyone would like to make on this? Councillor Schlack.
Yeah. With the danger of repeating myself, but I do want to thank everybody that's worked on that, including the Honourable Amy Adams. I think we put a lot of work into this, not only in this particular plan, but particularly as in our preparation and making decisions to go towards Southern Waters. And I really have nothing further to add. That I do believe this is the right way to go, and quite possibly most highly quality water service delivery plan that the DIA has received to date from every council, particularly considering some of the comments that we've heard from other councils over the last 6 months or so. So yeah, I fully stand behind this, and I hope my colleagues will join me in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cowles.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Look, I just want to echo those thoughts. The amount of work that's gone into this, the amount of, I know personally from us, the reading, the reviewing, the public workshops. I don't think we could have gone through any more of a process. The work that's been put in by the team. We've had Amy on board, and the councillors that have taken this on board to move us through. So I'm very confident we're moving in the right direction, probably the only direction we can right now. Does it raise some questions in the future? Absolutely, but they're not questions that we can answer right now. And right now, this is the only way forward. So very supportive of this. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor Ryan.
Thank you. Yeah, I do want to I thank everyone who's been involved in this process. It's been massive. I feel like it's been a conversation that has just been ongoing since I've been on council. And I guess to be clear, my questioning wasn't around the Southern Waters model itself, and I wasn't at all wanting to relitigate that. It was supported by the majority for a reason. I just thought it was important to start a conversation based on the questions that I keep getting in the community, and it is one that I guess I've really wrestled with, because as elected members, it is our responsibility to be thinking strategically and to be making decisions that stand the test of time. And you're right, Alex, we can't speculate on where things are going to land, but I keep coming back to the question, would we be making this decision today if we had more time to realign all of these discussions? But at the same time, there are real genuine risks associated with delaying this. Southern Waters is being established, implementation work is underway, staff need clarity, and we need to move forward. So I totally accept that. It's just, I guess I have really wrestled with it because of the unique situation, I guess, that we've found ourselves in here. And yeah, we are temporary custodians of this district, and I just really wish that there was an opportunity to better align all of these reforms and avoid all sorts of unnecessary duplication and potentially heading down a path that we're going to have to walk back on in the future. I will support the recommendations today, but I guess I just wanted to express some of the thoughts that I've been wrestling with over the past wee while.
No, thank you. Councillor Thowling and Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, likewise, I'll be supporting it. As Amy said, none of the solutions are without difficulty, but I just reflect on how we got into the situation. It says in here a third of our pipes are in poor or very poor condition, and I think that's just one part of the assets there. That's been the core driver behind this. Is nationwide, assets haven't been managed well. Renewals haven't really happened because it's an expensive thing to do, and now it's all catching up on us all at once. The average charge per connection is going from 1,238 this year up to 2,897, so just under $3,000 per year in 2033-34. It's a lot of money, but it does reflect how far behind we've got with our assets. And so when we're looking at the rate rises each year, and we're looking at our decisions around this table around assets, and the term biting the bullet sort of comes back to what comes to mind. So I will be supporting this despite the obvious shortcomings.
Thank you, Councillor Thorning. Councillor Hopkins.
Yes, I hadn't planned to speak, but listening to Councillor Ryan, or Deputy Mayor Ryan, I think it's probably worth pointing out, answer the question if we had more time or whatever, or more certainty in regard to other areas of decision, would we be making this decision today? And the answer, whether we like it or not, is inescapably yes, for the same reason that I submitted unsuccessfully to my colleagues last year when we first voted on the matter. I tried to persuade people to accept the unpleasant truth that what Wellington wants, Wellington gets. And Wellington has got what it wants in regard to Waitaki's water solution. And that's an inescapable fact. We have also, I think, happily arrived also at the optimum solution, and I do accept the work of Sue and others that has demonstrated that the proposal that we are going to vote for is currently the most affordable on the table. But the actual political fact is that we've been given a time frame, we've been given a direction, and we have effectively said, yes, we will comply with both. So the answer to Rebecca's question is yes, yes, yes.
No, fair call, Councillor Hopkins, I think. And at the end of the day, this is what we're doing. And it is a mixture between Councillor Fowning's sort of thought process and what's being put on us by central government. And whether we would have made the same decisions in timeframes, I think the timeframes become really challenging as local government because the cost implications, and we certainly wouldn't be doing things in the timeframes we're looking at now with the debt repayment over sort of 10 years, because it wouldn't be seen as financially prudent for what we're passing on to our ratepayers. And that's what the crux of the matter here is. And we're seeing that very much in our annual plan discussions, that our community is struggling out there to pay. And right now, what we've got a hand on us from central government does increase costs. But the issue is as well that because of that, and because we are very close to the community and we do feel the pain that they feel, it becomes really tough to do those long-term decisions and to actually put the right level of funding into protecting your infrastructure and actually making sure you're future-proofing it and not kicking that can down the road and leaving it for our children and grandchildren to pick up and have to pay for. So I guess that's where, you know, that heavy-handed approach, if you will, does come into play, because essentially we're here because we probably wouldn't make that decision. And I certainly would argue that we've water decision and this discussion around water, it's been a good 10 years in the play at a national level. And then all of a sudden the local government reform has come a little bit more out of the pipeline. And I think it's probably been a reaction to the cost implications of the Three Waters discussion. And so essentially, Three Waters has really put a spotlight on councils to say, especially small councils like Waitaki, that ongoing, it's not affordable to carry on doing things the way we're doing things. So I think the reason why it's gone the way it has, and it may be cart before horse, is because this Three Waters investigation has really put a spotlight on where the issues lie. And as a result, has probably said, hey, we think you need to do something different as a sector. The timeframes, again, have been problematic in that. But I can see how it has played out. But I think the outcome is problematic. But I also think some of these details can be worked through. Nothing's insurmountable. And when it comes to whatever Waitaki looks like in the future, I think that we can find a way to manage our CCO appropriately. So, yeah. Councillor McComb, you were looking like you wanted to talk.
Being very pensive, actually, thinking about lots of different things. I'll support this because we have to. We don't have a choice. It's as simple as that. I don't like the way it's been done and everything else, but that's my own personal opinion. We must go forward. I think the Mayor has said exactly what needs to be said as far as that's concerned. We have been guilty as a country of letting go our infrastructure, and at some stage you've got to pay the piper. That's probably all I've really got to say. We've just got to remember that the consequences that come afterwards, we've got to really be on top of those and get them sorted.
Absolutely. Councillor Lewis.
Thanks, Mayor Tavendale. Yes, I'll be supporting this. I think the reality of it is that we can worry about what may happen in the future, but the only time we can make a decision is now, based on the information that we have and the situation at play. The reality of it is that there's never an ideal time. There's only the right time to make decisions. I'm quite confident that what we've got here in front of us is actually at this point in time presenting the right way forward, presenting the right opportunity. Everybody deserves clean, affordable, reliable drinking water and a good management of that infrastructure. And it's been abundantly clear for many years that with the way that councils have the ability to fund, that makes it unaffordable to actually make those major investments. And the longer the situation continues and the time for renewals and things is delayed, the more expensive it is, the harder it is to actually get yourself even further ahead. So I will be supporting it on the basis that we need to make the decision now, and I'm comfortable that it's the right decision as of today.
Thank you. Now, Councillor McCone, I'm going to let you speak again.
I just forgot to thank everybody for their inputs. It's just been huge, and especially Stu and Amy for everything they've done as well. There's a lot of work gone behind the scenes and a lot of work to make sure that the information, as Dan just alluded to, has been in front of us so we can actually get this underway. And that does, I won't name people in our own organisation because there's just too many, but I really thank them for what they have done.
You're right, it's been absolutely massive. Right, I'm going to put that. So we've got a mover and a seconder. We've got those down, haven't we, Arlene? Perfect. Right, so if we're clear, I'm going to put that. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against? That's carried. Is that unanimous? Thank you very much. Right, well, I think that's all we had on the timetable for today. So for those watching at home, I just want to say thank you for joining us and showing interest. This is another one of those really meaty things that we have in front of us as a council, and it's the start of another big process, which is essentially now moving into the space where we set up Southern Waters. So I just want to reiterate what everyone said around the thank yous. Staff internally, this has been insanity and it's been massive, and you've really pulled something out of the bag here. So thank you. Amy, Stu, councillors, Councillor Slack in particular, a massive thank you and well done for getting us to this stage. And you know, there's no shortage of work to do now to stand the entity up, but do take a moment to just enjoy the fact that we've actually got a plan that's agreed here, and hopefully the next stage of that will be the IA and the Minister approving that plan. But for now, thank you for those watching online, and we'll finish up there.